hindi naman ABS, kundi ABS Holdings. Correct?
That's correct, Your Honor. As I was saying a while ago, it was
So
ABS-CBN.
bakit hindi masabi ng SEC ngayon, direkta, na kung may participation ang foreigner sa ABS Corporation?
The structure, Your Honor, is something like this. AbsCbn Corporation issues shares of stock to AbsCbn Holdings Corporation. AbsCbn Holdings Corporation issues Philippine depository receipts to investors, some of whom are foreigners. As we all know, dapat 100% lang ang ownership ng 100% Filipino ang ownership sa isang media company. At the time that the PDRs were issued, the prevailing opinion was the PDRs are not evidence of ownership or certificate of ownership. Yun po yung in 1999. No? And as I said, at that time, the prevailing test for ownership was the control test under the Foreign Investments Act. You look at the shares of stock only. Yung shares of stock ba ng corporation ay 60% Filipino-owned, that would make that corporation Filipino. Since then, pumapasok po sa mga decisions ng Supreme Court this concept of beneficial ownership. Beneficial ownership combined with voting rights. So as you said, subject to verification, normally a PDR would not contain voting rights on the part of the holder, normally. But there can be instances where there's a separate agreement or there are other circumstances whereby nagkakaroon ng voting right yung holder or some kind of control. So we have not yet been able to determine that factually if that's the situation in AbsCbn.
So, Commissioner, in short, hindi nyo pa nakikita kung may violation itong PDR na ito?
Opo. Hindi pa po namin
na-examine.
Opo.
Kailan nyo kung matatapos yung examination? Because importante itong issue na ito eh. No? This is actually one of the core issues in the quo warranto proceedings. So I was hoping na meron kayong sagot dito, no, para at least ma-establish na natin ngayon. Kailan nyo kung matatapos yung examination ho ninyo?
Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, in anticipation that we might be called upon to render some kind of opinion in the Supreme Court case, we've begun to look into the operationalization of the PDRs and prevailing jurisprudence. But because we also anticipate that either we might be called before the Supreme Court or the Supreme Court, as in previous cases, might remand a portion of this case to the SEC for hearing, we'd rather not make a categorical statement on this at this time.
So you're telling us, but you know, I was looking at the PDRs of ABS. At very explicit, may mga safeguards dito, restriction on foreign ownership. No? And it's quite explicit here that the PDRs is subject to our constitutional requirement. No? So hindi pa ba ho enough ito na magsabi na wala akong foreigner na pag may-ari po ng ABS? Very clear in this PDR.
Yung issue po kasi ngayon is whether this idea of beneficial ownership, what are the elements? Nai-introduce po kasi sa Supreme Court yung concept ng beneficial ownership. Definitely as a PDR holder, meron pong economic right yung holder. Kung may dividendo po sa shares of stock, even though I am a PDR holder, for example, and I don't receive the dividend directly, the holding company receives the dividend, and then after paying for the expenses of the holding company, the resulting proceeds is then paid to me as a PDR holder. So may economic interest po yung PDR holder. Whether that is
just to close, no, because paikot-ikot tayo, wala tayong pinupuntahan, Commissioner. I would suggest to the Commission na bigyan kami ng definite answer. No, importante ho to eh, no? Importante ho to dito sa ating hearing at paikot-ikot lang ho tayo, Commissioner, with all due respect. No? So, Madam Chair, would like to request from the SEC to give us a definite answer regarding the PDRs that were being discussed.
Or we could ask the SEC, go ahead and investigate already their PDRs. This is crucial to the decision the Congress will come up with, not necessarily to cancel the franchise if they were compliant with past memorandum circulars, but at least moving forward, they can rectify their position.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. We're
How
actually
long is it
doing
going to take?
that. Your Honor, it will depend on how much time you will take to understand the actual financial transactions of ABS-CBN.
I know that ABS is willing to submit to you whatever information you need to be able to come up with your report, and as soon as possible.